Daily Beats Productions. 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 You are listening to Daily Beats. Daily Beats Productions. Daily Beats Productions.
What up, YouTube? My name is Tiago Duarte, and welcome to another live stream here at Daily Beats. In today's in today's live stream of the producer show, I have a couple of questions that I'm going to go through in this live stream. And if you are new here, just drop me a comment in the chat. I will be happy to connect with you guys. And yeah, so a few announcements. I will be doing these live streams every Saturday at around 6 p.m. GMT+2, which is the Berlin time, and I'm located in Stuttgart, so that's the time that I'm going to do these live streams. And the idea for these live streams is to get all of your questions and answer them here in video format so that I can help you speed up your learning process and provide a little bit more value to the community and answer some of the questions that you have, and also to start interact with you more so that I can have a better feeling for your questions, your problems, your issues when becoming a better producer. And I also have a link in the description that you can join. So you can ask questions here in the chat, but I always have questions beforehand before I start this live stream. And the idea is that if you go to the newsletter, you will be receiving an email every Friday with a form that you can post your questions, and then I will gather the questions from the forms and answer them here in the video, and they will have higher priority. So if you put a question in the chat, I will be answer the question if I have enough time, but if I don't, then the questions that I'm making sure that I will be answering are the ones from the newsletter. And I'm not going to post any marketing material or any product release or anything. Will be just information about the live stream. By the way, next Saturday, I'm not going to do a live stream because I'm going on vacation. Yes, to Portugal, long two vacations. And hopefully I have no issues with the trip because of this situation with the virus. I hope that everything goes smooth and I can return home safe and come back home here in Germany. So let me see. Again, if you are watching this live stream and you just joined, you can shoot me a question or a message here in the chat. As you can see, I have the chat on my side and I can always reply. So ask your questions through the chat. Okay, let's put a smiley face. Even though I'm not very smiley today, I had the same issue that I had last weekend, which was my neighbors playing music at 5 a.m. So I had to wake up at 5 a.m., knock on their door, and ask to stop the music. So that's annoying. Even though I'm a music producer and I love music, I also love my sleep. And so I feel today was kind of a lost day. I didn't do too much. I was not very productive. I still have a headache. Because I couldn't sleep very well after that. So yeah, it is what it is. But hopefully the situation will be better from now on. Let's see. And one thing, don't be that guy. Don't be that person that plays loud music in the evenings after 10, 11, midnight or whatever. I mean, it's just disrespectful, I guess. Not I guess. I think it's disrespectful. I'm a music producer. I'm always listening to music, but after like 10, I turn off the speakers and I always use headphones. I never had a complaint about making noise, and I do sometimes blast my speakers during the day, but that's fine. My neighbors, I spoke with my top neighbor, not top, but the one above me, and she never complained about noise, or she was like, "No, I never heard too much noise that would make my situation a little bit unpleasant." But yeah, it's just If you want to listen music, go ahead, but do it with headphones in the in the evening. So don't bother people. I think that's disrespectful, and it puts everyone in a strange situation. Okay, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and let's talk about music, so that maybe that can help me a little bit better to get in a better mood today, I guess. So let's see. The first question I have here, 5 questions. So I will try to answer them all in 1 hour, or I will try to be as fast as I can. And I will try to also answer the questions the best that I can. Okay, so the first question is how to add bounce to drums in FL Studio. So this is a really cool question. And whenever you start adding bounce to your drums or to your songs, you start to get a little bit a different vibe, a different feeling for the tracks. And some styles do require more bounce than others. I would say, for instance, old school hip hop requires a lot of bounce. Jazz songs requires bounce, and maybe some house also. You can get away with trap. You don't need to add too much bounce to trap. Also EDM. I don't think EDM. You might get away without bouncing, but without bounce, not bouncing. But yeah, some styles require more bounce than others, and that's a good thing to have a better idea on how to add bounce to drums and to your entire song. So let's jump into FL Studio. And I have here a blank project. So what I'm going to do actually is go here to template, and let's go with basic 808. Yeah, this one could be enough. So we have all these 4 drums that sound really cool, but you can also apply this to any instrument that you have in your project. And yeah, so let's go ahead. If I put a simple pattern like this, a very basic pattern like so, let's put this at 198. Very simple beat. Let's put that one here. Especially try to focus on these double kicks. It's kind of like tutum, tutum. Not too much bounce in these ones. One thing that we can do to help with this is the volume, adjust the volume. So if I start adjusting the volume, it sounds a little bit better. It sounds a little bit more interesting. But one way that you can add bounce to drums is with this bounce knob here. We have, or as we call it in FL Studio, they call it main swing. And let's go ahead and let's add a few more sounds here so that we can have a better understanding of what's happening when we apply swing to the drums. So it's very simple. And what this will do is shift all the offbeat or all the what's the word? All the pair steps. So or even steps, all the even steps. So if this is step number 1, let me add here empty sampler. Let's add one of these. So if this is 1 step, 2, 3, and 4, and then we have 5, 6, 7, and 8, and so on. So all the even steps, this one's here, all the 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8. All these even steps will be shift a little bit to the right. And the more you apply this swing, the more shift will happen. So let's go ahead and start adding some swing. Let's go very aggressive so that we can really see the difference of before and after. And let's play this now. Let's take it out. And let's put it again. Maybe a little bit less. And you can see in the kicks, it's instead of pum pum, it's more like pum pum. So it's kind of hard to explain to really show the difference. But what happens, what this is doing is basically it's just moving some of the notes a little bit to the right, or the even steps to the right. And I can exemplify that by just going here and just moving these around a little bit, like so. Okay, and we can also do that with the hi-hats. So let's select the even hi-hats, like so, and then we can move them all together a little bit to the right. So this is doing the same as I was doing with the swing, but without swing. So this option gives you a little bit more control, but is a little bit more tedious to do. So you have to go and select every single note, and then you can just shift everything around, and you will get that same vibe, that same feeling of the swing. But I don't recommend to do this. I always recommend to do the swing. I think the swing is the most easy and the most economical, let's say. I don't know if that's the correct word to use in the production context, but is the most simple to use and the most effective, I would say. And of course, you can still go here and play around with the volume. That also makes a big difference. And this is very, very aggressive. You see that it's really, really pushing the sounds to the right a lot. And it depends a little bit on the how can I say? It depends a little bit on the style of music that you are trying to get. You might get, sometimes I make rap music that I don't add any swing. Whenever I want to have more like old school type beats, I do apply swing to the beat so that I can have a better feeling, a better vibe to get a better old school vibe. Because if you see, especially in hip hop, which is, I would say, the most my most what's the word that I'm looking for? The style that I know the most. A lot of old school hip hop used MPCs or drum machines to make beats, and those drum machines, those MPCs, have some type of swing, and that's why usually swing, especially in hip hop, takes us back to that more boom bap type of songs. So there's always a thing here, and yeah, I would recommend to use the swing knob. You can also do this with other ways, but I think the most easy is to use the swing, and it's very easy. You just apply it, remove it, and you can have swing all over your sound. So if I go here and let's say that I add a piano, let's just do this very quickly to demonstrate that this applies to everything, not just the notes, not just let me put here. Okay. You see, I have this very, let's go octave higher, which is a little bit easier to demonstrate. If I start applying swing, you see that this applies swing all across your project, all across all of your instruments. Of course, if you bounce this to audio and then you go back and change the swing, then you will have a mismatch of swing. But yeah, it's something that you can that you have to be aware of. But I would say the most useful way to do it is with the swing knob. Okay, so I think that's it. Let's go to the next question, which is how to let me see, how to make nice chord progressions. Okay, this can be a course on itself, It's not easy to make chord progressions, but I will just give you some general tips and beginner tips, I would say, to help out with with this question. So let's go to FL Studio again. And the main idea for doing chord progressions is to use scales, or one of the easiest ways to have good chord progressions so that you don't spend too much time on making chord progressions is by using scales. And let's go ahead and select the scale. Let's go view, and let me see which one we have. We have A major. So let's go ahead with A major. So now we have the scale, and you can see that we have A with a little bit darker color than the white notes. So this is kind of a gray color. And then we have here notes, or we have lines that are also a little bit gray than the other ones. And this is gray, this is dark gray, or darker gray. So the notes that are gray, they represent the scale, like this. So this is the scale of A major. And it's very, very easy to recognize what notes we have in using this scale highlighting. So if you don't see that, you can go here, views, and you can go note grid highlight. So if I remove this, you see that everything disappeared. And now I only rely on my knowledge of the scales. And it's kind of a little bit harder if you don't know too much about music theory. It's make it a little bit harder. So we want to make our lives easier. So let's go and enable the note grid highlights. And now we have again the highlighting here. So let's go ahead and start by creating a major key. And chord progressions is all about chords. That's why it's called a chord progression. And you should go and I strongly recommend that you read some books on this because this can really help you out in your music career, I would say, or your production skills. But the thing here is that we have this stamp mode, and as you can see here, we have melodic chords, and then we have melodic scales, and then we also have percussions and special. So what I would say is you can see that we have a bunch of chords here. So let's start with the simple ones. Let's go with major and minor. So let's go with a major chord, and let's put here A major. You can see that it fits in the chord, or in the highlighting here. You see that all the notes fit inside of this highlighting. So let's extend this a little bit, and let's do a simple chord every beat or every bar. Sounds good. Let's now add another chord, or let's move this up. And for instance, we can go up or we can go down. And if I go down, you see that if I go down one, this one belongs to the scale, but this one does not. And this also does not. So it means that probably I need a different chord. So let's go here. And instead of major, let's go with minor. And let's put in G sharp. And we can see now that the minor for this one fits, but for that one, it doesn't. So let's go and try a different one. Maybe this one. This one fits F sharp minor. And this one has F, A, and C sharp. And this one fits the highlighting that we have. So let's listen to this one. Okay, so we are getting somewhere. This sounds cool. And with these two chords alone, we can create a chord progression. So let's now move, let's see, if we want to go up and down, I would probably go down again. And I can copy this note and try to see another note here. So this one does not fit. As you can see, the G does not belong to the scale. So let's try a different one. This one does not fit. This one fits. So let's listen to this one. But then we have a big jump here. Let's see if this will sound good. It kind of does sound good. So I will keep it this one, and let's copy this again, and let's go another one down, and this one also fits, which is B minor. And let's listen to this and see if this sounds good. I kind of like that, but let's try something different here for the end. So let's keep this note here to the side. Let's make a selection for this one. And instead of using a minor, let's use a major key. So let's see, this one does not fit the scale. This one also. This one fits. And probably this could be a good one. So we go down, go up, and then we go down and up. Let's see if this one sounds good. I personally think this one sounds a little bit more pleasant than the minor one. So I'm going to delete the minor one. And then it's all about, I would say, if you are a beginner and you are starting out, a way to make nice chord progressions will be something like this. Experimentation is always key. You should always try to experiment and always try to get a better feeling for if they sound good or not. If it sounds good, if it doesn't belong to the scale, I don't care as long as it sounds good. Sometimes I even start putting notes randomly just to get a different chord progression, and I try and move chords around until I get something that I like. But this is a very fast and easy way to get something really quickly. And as you can see, this sounds really cool. And we could, for instance, start with a piano and then move to a different instrument. We can go, for instance, to let's see, let's go GMS. Let's see if we have something cool here. Let's go maybe leads and synths. This could work, and it sounds really cool. And of course, you can still move things around. Let's add some more voices. Let's detune this. Let's see another example. Let's try different ones. I don't like this one. This could also work, even though it's a little bit bright. But could be for a more jazzy sound. I would probably add different chords for that one. Kind of like this one. As you can see, this is a very cool way to start making chord progressions, and I will recommend you to start with the piano. So you start with the piano, you go and select a chord that you want to do your chord progression with, and then you just start going here with the stamp, and you can play around with major 7s, minor 9s, minor 7s. So let's do that again. So we know that this one is a minor, so let's put this one here. So you see, it gives us already a different vibe. Let's try here a major 7 also. Yeah, but this one does not fit there. So I would probably go and ungroup this and move this one here. Maybe not. Let's try move it down. You see, now I'm getting into experimentation. So I don't like that too much. I would probably just keep this one out, or even I can try something like here. Kind of like that. Maybe with a little bit less volume. So, as you can see, it's all about experimenting and playing around with chords and also with the notes here. So you can, one good thing to start getting a little bit of sense of chords is to go through the stamps and just move things around. And you will see that, for instance, a major chord. Let's select this one, and a minor chord. If I put them side by side, you see that the fifth is always there, but the second note is different in terms of a semitone. So if you count, you see that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or if you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know, and we can do this, and the second note is the fifth, or the fifth counting, and this one here, the third note, is the seventh note in terms of semitones, and the minor chord in this one is the only one changing, is one semitone less. So this is a good way for you to start getting a feeling also of the different chord progressions or different chords that we have available. And again, it's I strongly recommend you to start playing around with chords, and then after you have your chord, you can start playing around with timing. So let's do something like this. Let's make another one here, for instance, and we can even change one of the notes. Let's do a metronome. Okay, you get the idea. It's just a matter of playing around with this and getting a nice vibe out of the chord progression that you have. Okay, so let me do what a break pause. Okay, so a quick announcement. I will be doing these live streams every Saturday at around 6 p.m. GMT +2, which is the Berlin time, and I'm located in Stuttgart. So if you want to see the time difference to prepare yourself next time, you will have the time difference based on Stuttgart. And I will be doing this every Saturday, or will try to keep up every Saturday. And even when I'm not in the mood, like I was not today. But yeah, the idea for these live streams is to get a little bit of your questions, not a little bit, is to get all of your questions and interact with you directly. You can post questions in the chat, you can say hi, you can ask me whatever regarding music production and also other stuff. I try to, I'm an open book, as they say, you know. Of course, I'm not going to reveal personal stuff, but if it's business, if it's marketing, I will do my best to answer personal development, whatever. I do like those topics, so you are free to just ask questions in the chat. And the idea is to get to know you a little bit better, to start interacting with you more and more, so that I can get a feeling for what you are looking for in terms of music production, so that I can target my content for that specificity. I think that's a word. So I can better serve you in your music journey. So just take advantage. I have a bunch of years of production. I've been producing for maybe 15 years. I started with FL Studio when it was version 7, I think, or version 5, something like that. So I've been a long way. In the beginning, it was very frustrating because I didn't there was no YouTube back then when I started with computers, and my first computer was a Pentium 3. So this was a long time ago. I think the RAM, it had like 64 megabytes of RAM, something like that, and yeah, it was way back in time. And I'm not that old. I'm not a fossil or anything like that, or a dinosaur, but I do have a lot of experience when it comes to software. I'm also a software engineer, and I work in the audio industry, so I do have a good understanding of how DAWs work. I've been using FL Studio since I remember the first time that I was introduced to music making in a computer, and from then on I was hooked. So I have a lot of understanding of FL Studio, so I think that I can really help you guys I can help you speed up your or answer your questions with a high degree of accuracy. And I also have a bunch of beats, a bunch of tutorials. I think I'm in 700 beats or close to 800 beats and 400 and something tutorials. So I've been doing this a lot. So I think I do have a lot of experience to help you guys with. And that's why I'm doing this live stream, so that I can give you a good understanding or help you figure out things in music. I have a link in the description so that you can subscribe to the newsletter, and I will be sending an email every Friday, so that you can ask your questions in the forms, and I will gather those questions and answer them here in the live stream. And those questions will have a higher priority compared here with the chat. Okay, let's go to the next question. And the next question is, what is the difference between limiter and compressor? So there's one could assume that there's not too much of a difference, but it might have some big differences. You can do limiting with a compressor, but you cannot do the same type of compression that you do with a compressor. You cannot do it with a limiter. And I will explain that in a short minute. So let's go to FL Studio again. And this could be FL Studio, Studio One, whatever, or any. I will show you actually several plugins, several compressors, several limiters, so that you can have a better understanding of it. So let's go here to the mixer and let's load a bunch of plugins. So we have dynamics. Let's go with this one, the Fruity limiter, because this one has both a limiter and a compressor. And you automatically see that we have different knobs already. Let's bring up one of my favorite compressors, which is we have a C4. This is one of my favorite compressors. Then we have also, I do like the Waves compressor. We have where is it? R compressor. I really love this plugin. I use it in every mix that I do. And then I also use one from Waves. I use this a lot, which is the Dynamics, the L1 Maximizer and Ultra Maximizer. Let's go with the Ultra Maximizer because it has a little bit more controls so that we can talk about it. And then we can also use, for instance, Isotope, the Ozone 8. I also have Ozone 9 not loaded in this one, but yeah. Okay, let's go. I have a bunch of stuff here. Let's start with FL Studio. So let's remove these ones and let's talk a little bit about the difference between all of those. So if we talked about this main compressor here, we have a limiter and a compressor. So what basically a limiter is just a compressor with the knee, or not the knee, with the ratio all to the maximum. And the ratio could be 20, as in this case, 20:1, but the compressor usually would have a ratio of 50:1 and above, like 100 or even infinite to 1. So everything above that, the threshold will be compressed 100%. And it will not cross that limit. That's the difference between a compressor and a limiter. And you can see that in some cases we might have attack and release for a limiter, but in some cases we do not have attack and release. So for instance, if I show you the RL1, we do have release here, but we do not have attack. So we can change, for instance, the quantization, dither, and shaping, and the domain here. And we can change the release of the limiter. In this case, it's a Ultra Maximizer, but it works as a limiter. We cannot change, for instance, the attack. And we can have here the auto release, but we can control here the release time, and we can have a fast limiter or a more slow limiter. Another thing that limiters have that compressors usually do not have is a ceiling, output ceiling. And if I go here to limiter, we do have a ceiling knob in this one. And as you can see, we also have out ceiling in this one. And of course, we do have threshold. In this case, in the Ultra Maximizer, we do have threshold. In this case of the Fruity limiter, we do not have threshold. But what happened is basically this is doing this. So as I'm increasing the ceiling or decreasing the ceiling, I can apply gain. If I apply the gain, so let's do that. Let's bring in here a loop. Let's go to packs so that I can show you a little bit easier loops. Let's bring a loop to the playlist. Okay. Let's make the time a little bit slower. Okay, so let's take the gain, and we have let me actually reduce the volume a little bit. And as you can see, we have we still have a little bit of range here, but if I start decreasing the ceiling, you see that what this is doing is basically just cropping all that volume. For all this, the difference here is just attenuating everything. And this is the limiter. If I have, let's put this at 0. If I have a compressor, I have, if I put a ratio really, really high and I start doing this, I cannot have the same effect. So you see that everything above that above that threshold, it's going to be compressed. The same thing, it happens with the ceiling. So let's reset this. The same thing if I do this, it's kind of the same effect. So how can you distinguish between them? It's easy. So if you are in the master, I would so the difference between when to use one over the other one, it's case by case. So if you want to just compress an individual instrument, you often go for a compressor. But if you are in a master bus and you want to add some compression, or you want to increase the volume of the track, but you don't want it to go above 0 dBs or above digital clipping, then you would use some type of ceiling or some type of limiter, so that you guarantee that after above this volume nothing goes through, and this helps prevent some clipping, digital clipping, and making your track sound horrible. So one thing that we can add volume to compress the audio is using here the gain. You see that now everything is doing the same compression that it was before, but it's not allowing the volume to go above this line here, which is the ceiling. And you cannot do that with a compressor. Okay, you can do that if you have something like this. But if I start adding the gain, you see that it's pretty much doing the same thing. So we have, because we have the threshold at 0 dB, if you look there in the hint panel, we have the threshold at 0 dB, and we have a compressor here with the gain, with a ratio of 20:1. If you start increasing the gain, it will work the similar as a limiter, but they usually serve different purposes, as you've seen. Usually with a compressor, I can just go here, go down the threshold, and start adding compression based on the threshold. In the limiter, I have output ceiling, and that's usually where I can add gain, so that I increase the volume so that it reaches that ceiling, and when it reaches that ceiling, it starts compressing. Okay, so let's see. The same thing could be said here. As you can see, if I start lowering here the volume, the output ceiling, now we start losing volume. But if, for instance, I start decreasing the threshold, it's the same thing that I was doing with the gain. But this works a little bit different. I'm like sending the threshold down so that the gain increases, and whenever it reaches the output ceiling, then we have compression. One thing that we can do is basically bring both together, and then I'm keeping the same volume. Oh, this could be more like compression. It's compression, of course, but it can work similar to a compressor, but we don't have any controls over it, like the knee or the ratio or the attack time. But yeah, so this is the difference in this one. If we go to another one, for instance, the C4, this is more like a multiband compressor. And if we attack every single compressor here as a normal compressor, we can have, in this case, we cannot, because here we don't have a ratio. So here we will have a range and a gain and a threshold. So different plugins will have different parameters and different things. And the multiband compressor, usually it's a little bit different than normal compressors and limiters. But then we have, for instance, the R compressor. Again, we have a ratio that we can have a ratio, for instance, of 625 to 1. If I go down, we have a 50 to 1. So this could also work kind of like a limiter in this case. And now we have control over attack and release and some other types here, and also the threshold here. And in this case, we can also work this as an expander instead of working as a compressor with a ratio of 2 to 1. We can have a ratio below 1, and this will expand the volume instead of decreasing the volume. Then we also have the Ultra Maximizer. I talked about this one. And then, for instance, we have the maximizer here from Ozone. And in this case, we have peak, the ceiling, again, the ceiling going through, because this is a limiter or the maximizer. And then we have a threshold. We have a character that it can go fast or slow. Again, we don't have specific controls over attack and release. We might have like a knob like this that allows us to change the how fast and how slow the maximizer or the limiter is. And then we might have some other parameters, in this case, stereo independence, which I'm not sure how to explain this, and transient emphasis. So I would have to read the manual for these ones, but and we can have different types of modes or different modes. In this case, you see smooth and thick limiting, and thick limiting for a rich sound, and this sharp, clear, and sharp limiting to preserve peaks. So we can have different modes also. Let's see this one, join or independent limiting of transient material in stereo channels. Okay, we would have to do some testing in these ones, but that's the main idea of, or the main difference between limiter versus compressor. I hope that answered the question. Now, sticking to the topic of dynamic volume controllers, we have the next question, which is, what is a transient processor? And this is a good question. So I'm going to actually keep the same loop that we have here, and I'm going to bring the default one to get rid of the plugins. And if we go to dynamics, we have here something called Transient Processor. And this is one of the latest plugins from ImageLine. And what this does is to, can I make this larger? I can't. Okay. So the idea for this plugin is to work on the transients. So if we go to the mixer here, we can have a better idea of what transient is. If I zoom in really a lot here, zoom in a lot, you see that this might not look like a transient, because this is a lot of sound and so on. But if we make it really short, we can see this is kind of a really short, especially this one here. And usually the transient would be something like the beginning of a sound. And then we have the attack, which is usually in the beginning, and then we have the release, which is usually the end of the sound. And here in the transients, it means that we are going to, in every big transient, in every big transition from low to high, this will do some processing. So I would say that this starts here. So we have a big jump here. Then we go down. Then we have here another transient because we go from low to really high. Then another transient here, go to high. Another one here, there, there, there. So what this is doing is that this is giving me, whenever we have a big jump in terms of volume, it can be considered as a transient. And this will detect these big differences, there, and so on. And it will apply some type of volume automation to either increase the attack or increase the release, or decrease the attack and decrease the release. Let's listen through and try to remove the attack. What this will do is basically, for instance, in this one here, this part here, because it's very the beginning or the attack here, we will try to first reduce the volume of this part and then try to increase. So let's play around here with the attack. And you see that we start losing some of the definition of the drums. And if we increase the release, what will happen is that we will try to bring this part up. So what I did was I took this part and brought it down, and then I took this part and brought it up. So what this is doing is making the drums not so transient. So it's removing the transient of the drums and making the drums more uniform. So with less variation, and this makes the drums a little bit squashed because we are doing that. If we do the opposite, if we reduce this part here and we increase this part here, the attack part, what this is doing is actually making the drums really snappy. So let's try and get an idea for that. And you see actually here the transients, and is increasing the volume of the transients in that sense. Of course, we still have some of parameters here that we can play around with, like drive. We can add some distortion to the drums after that, or to the sound that we are using the transient processor with or to. And this is really cool, especially, for instance, a good example of this one is like if you want to add a little bit more punch to your drums, you would go and use a transient processor, and you would increase here the attack time. To make the transients or the attack of the transients a little bit more present, this makes the drums a little bit more snappy. If you want to do the opposite, you can just remove the attack and you remove that transient of the drums. One thing that you may also want to do is, if you are using loops and your loops have a lot of reverb, you can kind of mask the reverb by removing the release. So these drums have a bunch of, or they have not a big, but they have some reverb to them. And what we can do is just remove or decrease the release, and then we have really clean drums. And we can now go ahead on top of this and add a different type of reverb to add our own reverb style to the drums. So let's do now that. Let's add a reverb. just an example. This is me just playing around with this, but this could be a good example of how to do this type of stuff. So I see now a comment here from Theorem. You can teach how to create techno melodies. Yes, I can. I will save this question because I'm already at 1 hour. First of all, thanks for the question. I'm already at 1 hour. I will save this question here, and I will put this question in the next one, in the next theorem, in the next live stream, because unfortunately, this probably I still have one question left to answer today, and yeah, I don't think I have time today. I don't think I have time today to answer this question, because this requires, it's not just how can I create techno melodies. You can go ahead and see the beginning of the stream where I showed how to create chord progressions. That can also give you a good idea on making chord progressions that you can also use in techno. I know techno doesn't use like these very happy chord progressions. They tend to be a little bit more minor, but this would require me to try to make a beat and have some and create some melodies in a beat. But I will do that in the next live stream. Unfortunately, next weekend I will not be here because I will be in vacations in Portugal. So I'm going back home. And yeah, so if you ask this half an hour before, I would probably have time to answer this. But yeah, I'm sorry. This time I don't think I can. But let's see. Let's because I'm going to be in vacation for 2 weekends, so it's going to be a long time before I can answer this question. So let's see if I can still answer the question today. So I will go to the next question that I have, the final question that I have here, which is, what is gain staging? And this could be a quick thing to answer. So I will probably have some time extra to create some techno melodies. Okay, let's go to FL Studio again. And we have here, so the question is, what is gain staging? So let's use one of the loops that I was playing around with. I still have it here. Yeah, let's remove the plugins that I had. So let's do something that I like to do to exemplify what is gain staging. Let's go with, where is it? Visual dB meter. Let's bring 2 dB meters. dB meter, and let's add here a filter. So we have our loop, something that we want to mix. And if I put this side by side like this, and if I put this one here and this one here, we have the input volume, and then we have the processing, and then we have the output volume of the EQ. So we have the source material here on the left, then we have EQ, and then we have the output of the EQ on the right in terms of volume, in terms of dB. If I start applying something like this, what this is doing is that I'm removing some of the high frequencies here. I'm applying a shelf with minus 18 dBs. What happened is that if I look at these, they might seem the same, but in reality, if I put them side by side, we can see that this one is a little bit less than that one. So if I want to maintain the same gain, the same output gain, I would have to increase the gain just a little bit so that my gains match in terms of volume. Maybe a little bit less, maybe 1 dB. And this could be just 1 dB of difference. But for instance, if I do something like this, then we start to get a big difference here, and you can see. And now the thing that I have to do is increase the volume here so that I can still have the same peak volume. So the input and the output, they both have the same gain, I would say, but now we applied some effect to it. And why this is very important when you are mixing, because you want your effects to have you want your effects to not how can I say this? You don't want to be fooled by the effects that you are playing, because usually what happens is that when we are applying effects to a mix, if the effect that we apply makes the mix louder or the instrument louder, we might think that is making the instrument better, when in reality, when it gets louder, it's not necessarily better, because what happens to the way our ears work is that if it's louder, it sounds good, or it sounds better. But in reality, you don't want that. If you are mixing a track, what you want to do is first have your processing done, and then you want to gain stage, so that the same input that you had in the beginning, you will have at the end, or in terms of the same dB level, at least the peak level. It's not always completely like one-to-one, but you want to match as close as possible. And then when you remove the EQ or remove the processing, then you can really see if this is making a big difference in your track. So that's why gain staging is so important. And let's now see what happens when I remove this EQ. And of course, this is a extreme example. But we see that we have the same gain. And that's the point here. The point of gain staging is maintaining the same gain before and after your effects, because that's when you can make sure that you are really, really affecting your tracks and making sure that your static mix is well maintained, or you maintain the same levels that you start when you did the static mix. So that's a simple concept, but it's very, very important. I think my mixes started to be way, way better whenever I start doing these little concepts. When I started implementing the concepts of static mix and gain staging, my mixes became really, really cool and way better. And so it's a very important thing to understand, gain staging. And if you do get it, you should try to apply in all of your mixes. So what time is it? 7:02. Yeah, let's try to answer the question. I hope you're still here in the live stream. I see that I have 2 viewers, but yeah, let's try to get some techno going on here to try to write techno melodies. Okay, let's bring a kick, and let's see, FPC. I have a bunch of kicks here that I do like from a pack that I have. So let's go with minimal kick. Let's go with this one. Magenta, I guess. Yeah, this one here. Let's add a kick here. Usually it takes me, so I usually see it this way. Whenever I'm creating techno, I usually start with a kick, then I create some type of bass. One thing that I'm really enjoying lately for basses is Harmor. They have some really cool dope basses. So let's go here with this one, maybe this one here, see? This is very loud. Okay, let's do a rolling bass. Something like that. And of course we have to lower the volume here. Let's do something like that just to give a little bit of a difference. Oops, let's make the BPM a little bit slower. Okay, then I will probably go ahead and bring some hi-hats. Let's see, some hi-hats. Let's go with the 808s. Let's go clean cut. 808 tape. Where are you? This one. Or maybe this one here. Yeah, that one sounds good. Okay, so now since I have a bass for my track, I usually do, whenever I'm doing melodies, I kind of do, it can be different things. So I can create some effects to work as melodies, and or I can also do some type of call and response. So the one thing that I like to do is, for instance, let's say that I bring here some synth. Let's go. What can I add here? I think, yeah, I downloaded this one, Search. Sounds really cool. And it's free, so there's a bunch of stuff here. Let's go with some plugs. Let's see what we have here. I don't think that sounds very techno. Maybe this one. So one thing that we can do is do more, I did F. We can do something more like a percussive. That really works in techno. Let's make this a little bit slower. I mean, less volume. So I would say stuff like this really works when I'm making techno and I'm trying to get some melodies going on. So it's to have a foundation, and for this I like to do more percussive stuff. You know, techno really goes into repetition, and the more repetition you have, the better, I would say, in techno. And of course you want to add some release, some breaks to that repetition, but it's very repetitive. It's always kind of the same loop going on and on, but with some differences to break the tension. So this would be one way to add these more kind of percussive elements to it. Then the next part would be to create some different melodies on top of this. And for that, I would create, for instance, 8 bars of the main track. And then I would go ahead and bring here some synths like this. And I would start with, let's bring this Surge. I really enjoy this this plugin. And let's say, let's go with some lead. Let's see if we find something here that sounds techno. Okay, maybe this one. And one thing that I would do, for instance, is to add, let's go higher. And I could do something like, I think it was D. Let's see. D sharp. D sharp here. So this would be my first element of a melody. And for instance, in the second part, I would start lower, or maybe start here and then go up. So we have a beginning and then another part here. Something like that. Let's bring the volume a little bit down. And then I would put something in the middle of these two. So this would be my call, and then I would have a response. And my response could be another instrument. And let's bring another lead. Let's go maybe here. Okay, it could be something like this. And could be something here in the middle like this. Only just a single note. And in this one could be D sharp, and then go F, and then go down. Let's see if this sounds good. Maybe a little bit shorter. Let's see. something like this. I would have a synth doing some type of call, and then we would have a response. This could be one way to do techno melodies. And this is usually how I do my techno tracks. I usually start with synths to get a more kind of percussive vibe to the track, to get the rhythm going. And then whenever I want to make more complex melodies, I will go to different synths and load a bunch of synths, and then try to do this kind of question and answer, or something like that, or question and reply in terms of different synths. So having communication or having some kind of message with synths. So you go, and one thing that I did in one of my last techno tracks, you can also check in the channel. I did some videos for techno when I do techno from start to finish. And for instance, I started the first beat of the track. I had only one note, and then on the 8th beat of the track, I think it was in the 4th beat, I added 2 notes, and then 4 notes, and then I had like an arpeggio at the end. So this was kind of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this was my melody, and it was spaced out in probably 32 bars. But you can also do something like this, where you have just 2 synths, and they are kind of talking with each other, like, hey, I'm saying one thing, and then the other one is saying another thing, and the other one is saying another thing, and you have this kind of relationship between the synths. That's a good way for me to make my techno melodies, and the way I like to make my techno melodies. And so I hope that answered the question, and I hope that gave you some good tips on it. I think it was a little bit fast, like 10 minutes, but hopefully it helps. Thanks for the question. And I think I'm going to finish here today. And this was really cool. I had fun doing this live stream, even though I didn't start very motivated to do it. It was a good vibe, I guess. And I will be doing these live streams every Saturday. Unfortunately, the next 2 weekends I will not be doing live streams because I will be on vacation, and I'm going to Portugal to visit my family and my friends and have some good times. And the videos will keep going because I will schedule the videos to be posted in the channel. So you will still have access to new videos. But the live streams, I will not be doing any live streams on the Saturday. Nevertheless, these live streams will be every Saturday at around 6 p.m. GMT +2, which is Berlin time. And the idea here is to get your questions and answer them in this video. If you have really questions that you really want answered, I have a link in the description where you can subscribe to the newsletter. And in the newsletter, I will be sending a form every Friday so that you can post your questions there, and those questions will have a higher priority here compared with the chat. Fortunately, today I had some time to answer this question from Theorem, but if the questions start getting more and more, I will probably not have too much time to answer the questions in the chat if they take like 10 or more minutes. But if you want your questions answered, you can just subscribe to the newsletter. I will not be posting any product information or any marketing material. Will be only information about the live streams and where you can ask your questions. And that's it, guys. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for your time. Thanks for joining. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.